I am Isaac from the Mountain Takes, and this is the story of a man who built technology to map the world from extreme places. He had summited mountains, filmed Google Street View from the summit of Everest, and survived one avalanche on this same mountain a year before. But on April 25, 2015, when the Earth itself began to shake beneath Mount Everest Base Camp, no amount of technology and no amount of survival experience could save him. His 3 colleagues standing next to him walked away alive. He did not. Sit tight, because now I am going to explain what actually happened. It was 11:56 a.m. on April 25, 2015, at Mount Everest Base Camp at 17,500 feet. The time would be recorded precisely because what happened next would be measured by seismologists, documented by news organizations around the world, and investigated by mountaineering experts. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit Nepal. It was the strongest earthquake to strike the country in 80 years. The epicenter was 600 kilometers away from Mount Everest, but at extreme altitude, distance doesn't matter. The seismic waves travel through the mountains themselves. The ground doesn't shake gently at high altitude, it shatters. At that exact moment, Dan Fredenberg was in a tent at base camp reviewing photographs. He had been on Everest for 3 weeks with 3 other Google employees. His mission was simple but ambitious: document the glaciers on Everest for Save the Ice, a non-profit organization he had co-founded dedicated to climate change awareness. He was there to photograph what global warming looks like from the highest point on Earth. He was there to show the world that climate change isn't abstract. It is visible in the melting glaciers of mountains. He had prepared for this expedition for weeks. He had trained. He had planned. He had survived a previous avalanche on this mountain just a year earlier. Everything suggested he would walk down from base camp in a few days and return to his life as Google X's privacy director, as an inventor, as an adventurer. But the Earth had other plans. Dan Fredenberg was 33 years old, born in Mission Viejo, California, raised on a farm, educated at UC Irvine and USC. He had built a career at Google, working on privacy and innovation. He had co-founded Google's expedition team, the team that captured street view imagery from the summit of Everest, from the Great Barrier Reef, from the most extreme locations on Earth. He had dated actress Sophia Bush. He had been on television. He had been part of a world that most people only read about, but more importantly, he had chosen to use his platform for something larger than himself. He had chosen to climb mountains to document climate change. When the earthquake hit base camp, the impact was immediate and catastrophic. The Sarek, a massive block of hanging glacier ice on the west shoulder of Everest, fractured. The ice that had been suspended above base camp for decades suddenly lost its anchor. Gravity took over. The Sarek collapsed. The ice fell. It fell 2,000 feet. It fell through the air and hit the mountain and exploded into fragments. The avalanche that resulted wasn't a slow slide of snow. It was an explosion of ice chunks moving at hundreds of miles per h down the mountain directly toward where hundreds of climbers were gathered at base camp. The sound was described as like thunder, like the sky breaking, like the earth screaming. Climbers who survived reported seeing nothing but white cloud of ice particles and snow moving toward them at impossible speed. In the seconds it took to comprehend what was happening, the avalanche hit. Ice fragments the size of houses collided with tents. Climbers were thrown through the air. Equipment was destroyed. Tents collapsed. In those first terrible seconds, the mountain that climbers had been preparing for weeks to climb suddenly became a weapon. Dan Fredenberg was in a tent when it hit. His 3 Google colleagues were nearby Lawrence Yu, who would later post the company statement about Dan's death, the other 2 whose names are less documented, but who would walk away alive. The avalanche hit their area. The ice came through. Dan Fredenberg was struck by debris, head injuries, multiple traumas, catastrophic damage. The avalanche passed. The mountain went silent, and Dan Fredenberg was dead. His sister Megan found out through the expedition team. She posted on his Instagram account, because that is how the world learned about his death. This is Dan's little sister Megan. I regret to inform all who loved him that during the avalanche on Everest early this morning, our Dan suffered from a major head injury and didn't make it. We appreciate all of the love that has been sent our way thus far, and know his soul and his spirit will live on in so many of us. All our love and thanks to those who shared this life with our favorite, hilarious, strong-willed man. He was and is everything to us. Thank you. The post had thousands of comments within minutes. His death had already made news globally because the earthquake had killed over 3,200 people across Nepal. But Dan's death was personal. He was a known figure. He had a face. He had a story. He had been trying to save the world. Google responded officially. Privacy Director Lawrence, you posted a statement that would be seen by millions. Sadly, we lost one of our own in this tragedy. Dan Fredenberg, a longtime member of the privacy organization in Mountain View, was in Nepal with 3 other Googlers hiking Mount Everest. He has passed away. The other 3 Googlers with him are safe, and we are working to get them home quickly. Our thoughts are with the people of Nepal and with Dan's family and friends during this terrible time. Google announced it was donating $1 million to earthquake relief, but no amount of money could change what had happened at 11:56 a.m. on April 25, 2015. Actress Sophia Bush, who had dated Dan in 2013 and 2014, posted on Instagram, Dan Fredenberg was one of a kind, fearless, funny. The climbing community mourned. His colleagues at Google mourned. His family mourned. And the mountain stood unchanged, indifferent to the human tragedy it had just created. Dan Fredenberg's body was recovered from base camp. His body came down from the mountain. His family would be able to say goodbye. But the fact that he had survived one avalanche on Everest a year earlier, that he had been experienced, that he had been prepared, that he had been there for a noble purpose, none of it mattered. The earthquake didn't check credentials. The avalanche didn't ask questions. What made Dan's death particularly devastating was the randomness of it. His 3 colleagues were alive. They were in the same camp. They were experiencing the same earthquake, but they survived and he did not. This is what mountains do. They don't kill the weak and spare the strong. They don't kill the unprepared and spare the experienced. They kill randomly. They take whoever happens to be in the wrong place when ice decides to fall and gravity decides to win. Dan Fredenberg had wanted to show the world that glaciers were melting. He had wanted to document climate change through photography. He had wanted to use his position at Google, his fame, his resources to make people understand that the mountains we admire are disappearing. He had been 33 years old. He had accomplished more than most people accomplish in a lifetime. And then, in 5 seconds, it was over. The mountain took him not because he was weak, not because he was unprepared, but simply because he was there. Because the earthquake came, because the ice fell, because that is what mountains do. His family established a fund in his memory. Save the Ice continued his work documenting climate change on mountains. The climbing community discussed avalanche risk and Sarek danger. Base camp protocols were reviewed, and Dan Fredenberg remained the man who tried to save the mountains, died because of them. His story is a reminder that experience doesn't guarantee safety at extreme altitude, that noble purposes don't exempt you from mountain dangers, that being good enough, being smart enough, being experienced enough still isn't enough when you are at the mercy of forces that don't care about human intention. I am Isaac from the Mountain Takes. If you've ever tried to accomplish something bigger than yourself and wondered if it was worth the risk, subscribe, because there are more stories of mountains that don't distinguish between who deserves to live and who deserves to die. They take whoever stands beneath them when the ice falls. I'll see you on the next base camp.